Hello, welcome to my channel, welcome to my studio, and welcome to this little tutorial. You know, my goal was to make a very simple tutorial using a simple technique, silk screening on polymer clay. And that is where I started. We will make these in class. Ta-ta! But then I couldn't stand it, so we're gonna also make a bead. Yeah. Then we're going to talk about buttons. How about that? Let's get started. All right, peeps. So this is what we need for this very simple project. Number one, we need clay. Black clay. Well, it depends on what you want to do. Mine is going to be a black base with white paint. Now, you're going to need silk screens. Now, you can get silk screens on the internet. You're not going to have a problem finding them for clay. I love the Moiko screens. Now, these are designed by a woman, I think she's Czech, in the Czech Republic. And she was a textile person. And so the screens that she uses are very, very sturdy. The kind of screen material that you would use for big runs of fabric and, you know, hundreds, thousands of yards of fabric running through and being printed on. So the material itself has to be very sturdy, very strong, very durable, last a long time. And so she knows what material to use, and that's what she uses for her screens. Screens have a right side and a wrong side. Okay, she's made it easy because when you use her screens, if you can read her name, then you have positioned it properly on the clay. Okay, if you can't read it, then you are upside down. So turn it over like so. Okay, then you need paint. You don't need to use expensive paint. You can use cheap paint. You're going to need something to scrape the paint with, credit card, or look, Moiko. But a credit card will certainly do. Now, I'm going to make two different patterns. This pattern first, and then this pattern on this sheet. I've rolled my clay very thin, rolled it through setting number 5 on my pasta machine because you don't want your earrings to be really, really heavy, right? I mean, that's painful. So I've made these sheets quite thin because hopefully they won't be heavy. Okay, so let's begin. Now I'm just going to position the screen on the clay like so. I can feel some air bubbles underneath. I don't really want air bubbles because when you go to screen, you know, the screen will go baloop, go up and down. So do your best to eliminate any air pockets that you might have. Now, I don't necessarily want to really push this clay down onto the tile because I'm going to have to get it off. So just try to make sure that you don't have any air bubbles. See, now this isn't, I don't know what that is exactly, but I don't want it. So I'm just going to fold and roll through the pasta machine again. Could be a little leftover paint from something else. It's not going to really hurt anything, but the fix is pretty simple, so why not do it? Okay, so these are just placed on the clay, so you can read Moiko's name. Then we can screen. Now, there are two things that you want to have handy, and let me get them because they're also messy. Let's see if I can get over here without spilling a drop. Okay. This is a little plastic thing with water in it, little container, and then I have another one. So after I use a screen, I put it in one of the water baths, and then I try to eliminate as much of the paint as possible, and then I take the almost clean screen and I put it in the next water. I'll do it for you. We'll do it together. This is important because you can't just use these screens and then dump it in water and say, oh, I'll clean this up later. No, it doesn't work that way because acrylic paint continues to harden and cure in water. It's the H2O thing, you know, right? Hydrogen to oxygen. It's the oxygen. So you want to clean these as soon as you use them. So let me shake up my inexpensive craft paint. No need to use really expensive paint, as I said before. I learned that from Moiko herself. I was using all kinds of expensive tubed acrylic paints, and then I watched her demo, and you know, she just used this really cheap paint. And I thought, oh, well, she's the master, she knows. All right, so let's just take and spread the paint. You can see this less expensive paint spreads very nicely as well. Now I have quite a bit of paint on here. You can see I didn't really need to use that much paint. Okay, that's good. I'm going to call that good. Let's take this off. Butamus. Put it in here. And just try to get any excess. All this paint out of the screen. But see how much paint is in the water? Well, part of that is because I put too much paint on. But, yeah, you're going to find that your water's probably going to look like this or some color, whatever color your paint is. Okay? But this certainly is not clean. How could it be? Okay, and that's where your second bath comes in. You take that, you put it in, and you continue in the clean water to try to get all that paint out of your screen. It's important. I ruined some screens because I'm thinking, oh yeah, I can do this later. No. I don't know how to say this. Not. Definitely not. Okay, so once you've got most of the paint out, and if you feel the need, then you will take a third. You will do a third rinse. I think this is okay. So now I'm just going to lay it flat on a paper towel. Let that dry. I won't use this until it's completely dry again. All right, so I am going to do the other screen, and I'll be back. All right, so here are my silk screened sheets. Now, I don't think I want to make humongous earrings. I don't know. I don't know. I could make humongous earrings. Oh, let's just see what's cooking here. So that might be the largest, and then this will be a second one that sits inside. So let me just take a look. I don't want to do like that type of thing. I think I want to cut places where more along those lines, you see. And they don't have to be exactly the same, but let's pick good spots. Now I could make them bigger, but I think I'll stick with this. Should I make a little pendant? Well, we'll just make these first. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take my dim sum tray. I got this from a Chinese grocery store, and it's actually for dim sum. There was a handle that was sticking out of the middle, so I just unscrewed the handle. And now this becomes the very thing that I am going to cure my little discs in, like so. Little dim sum tray. Okay, so when you're taking them off, for instance, mine are a little bit stuck on, so I'm just sliding my blade underneath like that, pulling it up, and you can see it's not perfectly round, so I'm just going to pull it out and try to restore the roundness. And that looks pretty good. So this will go right in here. Just push it down from the middle and then work your way to the perimeter, and you shouldn't have too many problems with air bubbles. All right, so let's move on to the next. Now, what do I do with this? See this little, I actually throw this into my scrap clay. Yeah, there's little bits of, there may be little bits of acrylic paint in there, but they're not really problematic, or they haven't been problematic for me, so I don't throw that away. That ends up being part of my scrap. Probably ends up in the middle of beads and things like that. Okay, let's use the same one. Put that in. So this will be a small on top of a large one. Okay. Then I can decide what to do with the leftover. I like these. I like them a lot. Okay, into the oven they go. And when they're cured, I'll be back. All right, peeps. So I was in the process of just mushing this up, and I thought, why mush it up? Let's see if we can do something else with it. Now, I did cut more circles, and yeah, I did. And they're curing with the others. But one of the things I think this would be great for, buttons. Buttons. Yeah, buttons. Okay. Now, this is just scrap clay that I've rolled out through setting number 5. That's pretty good. I think it's not bad. Let me see. Let's see if I can do something a little more interesting with our scrappage. Why not? Why not? It's worth a try. I have absolutely nothing to lose, right? nothing to lose. And potentially a bead or something to gain. There is something that can be gained here. Let me see something. I'm just going to try to cut a bit away. Not too much, and that's a bit sloppy, so let me make a nice clean edge. Let's see if I can just slide something in there. Okay, in we go. This is kind of dull. Let me find a sharper knife. This thing is like dragging through. Let's see if this one's any better. Now, I think I'm going to put some more black in between, because why not? Also rolled through setting number 5. I want a long piece. I want a long piece. That's longer. It would help to use the right side of the blade. Yes, something interesting might, just might happen, or not. But what have I lost? A few minutes of my time. That's it. Just a few minutes of my time. And you know, that's not a huge loss. That is not a huge loss. Now, I only have 2. Now, maybe I should go cruising through my black and white stash and see if I can add a bit of something. Just a bit. Just a tiny bit. Ooh. Here's a very dusty zipper cane. Look at that. It's extremely dusty. It's been hanging around my studio for a very long time. But you know what? I'm going to use it. Okay, cut a nice straight edge that goes in scrap. Try to cut something that is approximately 5 through setting number 5. Lay it down. Something like that. Okay. Could be worse. Could be worse. Okay. So let's take just some thin pieces. Like that. And place them in like so. Much better than turning it into scrap clay, I think. Now let's do kind of a skinny one. Skinny black one. Let's run the skinny side from here. And I want this guy. I like this guy. I like him big. Let's see. Maybe you just get stuck like that. Do I have more of you? I do, a bit more. Let's see what's happening here. Why not? Why not? Maybe I'll make a big bead. I'd like to have something right in there. Cut around. Let's see if I can just slide some of this right there. Well, it's kind of interesting. Things happen when you play with clay. And I have to tell you guys, a lot of what I do really is just playing with clay. I just think I'm so lucky. You know, I spent my whole life playing. My most productive years have been spent playing with clay. Yeah. Could be worse. Could be worse. I'd say I'm pretty lucky. I never discount luck in anything. There's no reason why I was so lucky, except I was just lucky. All right, peeps. So, you know, this looks pretty interesting. Just taking and throwing your pieces together like so. Let's see, do I want to extend the bottom a bit? You know what, I've got all this. Let's just do that. I won't even put black in between, just have it like that. Just kind of fit it in. Where is the bottom? There's the bottom. Okay, so now this is my scrappage over here. So I'm just going to take all of this scrappage, put it together, and get myself a nice cylinder. I'm not going to use that as scrappage. Okay, I have to go off on some more scrap. I'll be back. Okay, made my scrap cylinder, and now let's take this. Even though all the pieces are the same thickness, they are a little bit irregular. And the zipper cane was really an approximation. It was not rolled through the pasta machine, so it is sort of, I think, setting 5. What I think setting 5 is. It's feeling pretty good though. Let's just flatten it out a little bit more. Why not? Okay, so here I have to decide. Am I going to wrap it this way around like that and make a bead that looks like that? Do I want to, you know what? Yeah. Okay, I already made up my mind. I made up my mind. This is OOAK. Right? One of a kind. Hello. One of a kind. Accidental bead. All right. Now, this is, it's not terribly thick, but once again, you know, this on this could end up being a very big bead, depending on how thick. You have to imagine that this thickness is going to increase the diameter around the whole thing. I have a tendency to make big beads. See, look at that. See how big that is? That is a huge bead. Okay. It's like more huge than I want. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to fix that by reducing the size of the core, so I don't end up with a bead that's quite so huge. It's still big. It's just not as big. Okay, getting these two together. Of course, the goal is to have the sides meet and none of that scrappage underneath showing. That's the goal. It is our goal. It's good to have goals. Okay. Okay, I'm going to close the ends like I always do. And if you've watched this channel, you've seen me do this a jillion times. Okay, pinch the ends, make a little bit of an indent, and then rotate. Dusty just walked by. Did you hear that? Yeah. Dust. My cat. Love this little guy. Okay, so I'm just pulling the clay from the sides up over to cover the end. Just like that. Let's close it. Should I make something that looks like a great big pill? Why not? I haven't made all that many capsule-shaped beads. Maybe it's time to start. Or not. I tend to like beads that are more like pointed at both ends, like this. It's kind of my preference, like that. This is a shape I much prefer to a capsule shape. Okay, now I have one bead. Don't know what I'm going to do with it. I mean, this is the kind of thing that might be nice. You know, I've been doing these lariats with beads that I make, and I rather like them. You know, you have one bead hanging, and then you've got your rubber cord wrapping around your neck. But, you know, pieces like that are very easy to wear. They're not very fussy, easy to put on. Goes with everything. Okay. Oh, not so bad for scrap edge, right? There we go. All right, so I'm going to cure this. Maybe not the best bead I ever made, but hey, it is, as I said, better than the scrap it was going to be. And it was kind of fun to do as well. Like it like that. Okay. Okay, here they are, and this is cool. So let's just take out the pieces that we're going to be using. Pick out the best ones. Kind of like these two, like that. All right. So what is going to happen here is that this is going to be seated in here, but I am going to put a pad of clay underneath so it lifts it up. But first, we want to sand the edges because we're going to put it back on it. We're going to bring a little bit of the clay up over the edge and trim so that we have this nice thin black edge around each of these pieces. But we have to sand first. Yeah, we do. So I'm going to use my P80. This is actually way more coarse than I think I need. So let's go to P150. And just take each piece and do as I'm doing. I'm just sanding the edge of each piece so that it's nice and smooth. See, I just want it smooth. Then you're going to take and hold it like this and then just lightly scrape like that, because if there's any corner here, when we back it, it could be problematic. And by problematic, I mean when I take my very thin sheet of black clay and push it around the edge, it could crack if you have a sharp edge there. So it's best to have it slightly rounded toward the front. Okay, I think that's good. Maybe just right there. Okay, so let me do the same thing with each of the pieces and then we will back them. Okay, peeps, so everything is sanded. Now, this is my black clay that I've rolled through setting number 6. It's quite thin. And I did add a little bit of blackout to it to make it a little bit softer because, of course, Kato Polyclay is a little stiff. And I want the clay to be a little on the soft side so that when I bend it around the edge here, it won't break. Now, I'm going to roll this through my pasta machine again. Ordinarily, on a thicker setting, I would just keep the same setting and roll it through. This clay is very thick. I mean, thin. It's very thin. So I am going to take my machine and back it down to 5. This is 6. I'm backing it down to 5 because if I roll it through 5, I'm afraid that this is going to get jammed into my sponge. Yeah, it's happened. Oops. The sponge is a little bit wide. Okay, let's pick a narrower sponge. All right, and roll it through. I'm going to roll them through together. Okay. And this is what I have. Transferred the texture. It's not super deep, but it doesn't have to be. Oh, I went down to 4. I went down too far. That's why, see how faint the pattern is? Okay, let me do this again. Let me do this again. Through setting 5, and I'll show you the difference. I thought it was a little loose. Yeah, so you can see the texture is much more defined. All right, so now I'm going to take a cutter that is larger, like so. Actually, I'm going to go even larger, like this. And I'm going to cut 2 pieces, and these will be on the larger disc. These will back the larger disc. Now, let's take a brush. The brush needs a little help. Take some liquid clay, sploosh it around the back, like so. Get some up along the side. You might want to use your finger for this, but just rub some of that liquid up along the edge. It's very thin, but it'll still help you. Okay, let's take one of these guys, lay it on the back, push, 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 and take it and start pushing this up along the edge like so. Like that. Now I'm going to use my blade, push my glasses up on my nose because they were falling down. And let's just try to trim the excess away, like so. And it gets kind of snagged up on the paint. Just a little bit, but not too bad. Okay, the last thing you want to do is make sure you've trimmed it well. Okay, and this looks pretty good. And then make sure that the clay is really up over that edge. And you have no gapping. You really don't want any gap there. Okay, so now I've got a nice black outline, so you can see the difference between the two. I think it makes a tremendous difference in the way the piece looks. It's easy enough to do. Seems like nothing, but it makes a huge difference. All right, so let me continue. I will do the same thing to this one, and to this one as well. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so everything is backed, and now I've rolled this through setting number 2, and I have a very small little cutter, so I'm going to cut 2 like so. Now let us take one of each of these, put it on the back of the smaller disc. Oops. Close enough. Now I'm going to put a little bit of liquid clay dead center right in the middle of the big one. Now let's flip this over. Put this in the middle, like so. That was my oven. That dinging was my oven. Yeah. Okay, something like that. Oh, these are cute. They're going to be cute little earrings. I'll add to my black and white collection. All right, so now these are going to be cured. And you know what I'm going to do? I am going to put them right back in here. Like so. And the backs will be a little bit shiny, but I'm not really concerned about it. I'm going to take these cured ones out. You know, these would be cute buttons. Really cute buttons. Matter of fact, these would be cute buttons too. Okay, into the oven we go. I'll be back. So, here they are. You know, as I'm looking at these, I think these would make smashing buttons. We haven't done buttons, so I think after making these earrings, we're going to move on to buttons for a moment. Anyway, so here are our earrings. So, of course, I could put a post on the back, and these would then be earrings that sit just right on the ear. Now, in a case like that, you're going to put the post higher up, not dead center. Put it dead center. You know what happens? It goes... it flops forward, and your earrings are facing the floor. Not quite the floor. They're facing down, though. So that's one option. You put the post a little bit higher, wear it closer to the face. And for me, earrings like that have a more conservative kind of look. Maybe you wear it to work, maybe whatever. They just have a more conservative look to them because they're closer to the face. We could drill a hole in and just hang it and suspend it down like this, so your ears are up here and you've got earrings that are hanging a little bit lower. Well, they're hanging from your ears. Okay, and I like that style personally, but I think that that's what we're going to do. Now, we have to decide on the finding. Because what we don't want is we don't want the earrings to start twisting like so, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have an earring that's going to be twisting, maybe you want something that's round or in the round rather than something flat, because, of course, they can get out of orientation and you can have that facing forward. Okay, so there are many findings. We have the finding that I hate. You know which one I mean, the stainless steel long like that, which in a case like that, this is probably perfect for that finding. Yeah, I'm going to say it probably is perfect because that particular finding, let me get it. All right. Earrings, findings. This is a perfect example of something that should have just a little round something at the end, right? Because it's going to turn. And I like these, but you've got to, if it's too heavy, it just pulls all the way like that, right? So you got a little balancing to do when you use these. Or you have to have a counterweight on the other side. All right, so here's that finding that I don't like. Yeah, I don't like it, but it would work in a situation like this. It would work just fine. No, because this loop, I really can't turn that loop. So if I used this, I would need 2 jump rings. One going this way and then one going that way, which would connect to the actual finding. So I'd have to have 2. This guy, I like this guy. I like it simple, and I can turn this loop like that. And if I turn the loop and I drill a hole in here, all I need is actually 1 jump ring. I like that, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, I need drills, and I need my trusty... Where are you? You know what? It's morning. I just got into my studio. I should sit for a moment. I'll be back. Okay. Back. You know, I wish, I know this probably drives some people crazy. This losing stuff, not having this stuff. Okay, this is the way they're gonna go. So I've got this large on that side, and then I've got this like that. So you see, I've sort of made, I've made more or less a left and a right. They're not kind of going the same way like that. See where this and this, the way these pieces are arranged, the pattern is arranged, this is more similar to this. If I do this, then I get more a mirrored image type of effect. Okay, so let's go right here and just put a little bit of a pilot hole in there. Yeah, I know losing things and not being particularly perfectly organized, it probably drives some people crazy, right? IKEA cork drill. And I wish I could say it's going to get better, but I'd be lying. I'd be lying. I don't want to lie. I do not lie. I do not. So I wish I could tell you it was going to get better, but it's just me being me and me getting and the old me, the older me. This is how it's turning out, folks. Does it bother me? You know what bothers me? My handwriting is getting a little shaky. I had beautiful handwriting. And it's getting a little shaky there. I think part of it is because I never write anything. Is that happening to anyone else? You know, I really do not write anything anymore. I'm always on my devices. My computer or my laptop or my iPad or, you know, I was a little worried about it because I thought, uh-oh, maybe I have something, some neural damage, nerve stuff, and I won't be able to do clay anymore, and what am I going to do, and, you know, all that jazz. But I'm like solid as a rock. It's just that my signature is different now. Okay, not exactly different, but I'm shaky in ways that I wasn't before. So you see what I'm doing? I just turn the direction of the loop so that I can now use one jump ring to connect them. Okay. And there, now it's hanging the right way. It's facing the right direction, and I only had to use one jump ring. I've covered this before with you guys, but when you're using jump rings, you want to use ovals, right? Everybody got that straight and know why? Yeah, use ovals. You're less likely to lose whatever it is you're trying to connect, because the ring does not continue to rotate and move. If it's round, it keeps going around and around and around, and eventually you're going to lose whatever it is you have attached. If you use an oval, the opening is always at the side. And because it's at the side, it's not going to, you're not going to lose your pieces. Yeah. See, gravity pulls it down and the opening is always on the side. Okay, let me connect these, put these together a little better. And now we have earrings. They're really cute. I think they're going to be fabulous buttons though. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these and we're going to make them buttons. Okay. So, my peeps, let's talk buttons. You know, before, pardon me, I do that, what I want to do is show you something. These were made by our John. John sent me totes. Look at these, they're beautiful. Fully lined. Let me just zoom out here a bit. Pardon the blue tape, but look at how wonderful they are. Now, John, I think you can, if you want, I mean, your bags are perfect as they are. Just imagine some beautiful buttons that you make as embellishments on your wonderful bags. There's one, here's another one. And the workmanship is absolutely beautiful, perfect. Fully lined with pockets and these little rivety things. Yeah, fantastic. So if anybody wants tote bags, I would advise you to contact John. Yeah. Anyway, these are great. Thank you, John. I love them. They will be my tote bags when I go to the store and stuff. All right. So what you've seen is a perfect place to put some buttons. Let's talk about, let me go back in. All right, there we go. Let me try to zoom in past the blue tape. Now, buttons. Buttons. We haven't talked about buttons and polymer clay. Now, the one thing, the only rule I would say, well, there are probably several rules, but the most important one is that you don't sew them on dry clean, on garments that you need to dry clean, because the dry cleaning fluid will damage or melt the polymer clay. Okay, so you don't want to do that. Now, if you want to put a button embellishment on a garment that you dry clean, then you're probably going to want to use a button cover. So you would sew a small button where you want the decorative button, and then you would slide the button cover over, and the button cover, of course, has the polymer embellishment on it. That way you can just easily remove it whenever you have to take the garment or the bag or whatever it happens to be to the cleaners. Now, you can certainly sew and stitch polymer buttons onto garments that you wash at home yourself. The one thing I would say is repeated exposure to the heat, probably not so much the detergents, but the heat in a washing machine is probably going to degrade them over time. Hey, I've seen buttons degrade over time. I mean, who hasn't? And so if you're going to stitch or use polymer clay as buttons on garments that you wash at home, I think you probably want to wash in gentle cycle, turn the garment inside out, and definitely line dry. Don't throw it in the dryer. And those few things will lengthen the life of these polymer objects that you're going to be using. So, buttons. You know, I'm looking at myself right now, and I am only, my hoodie is a zip up. I'm wearing my yoga pants. They've got no buttons and no zippers at all. I have a long sleeved t-shirt on. I don't think I wear many buttons, to be frank with you. You know, Yeah, I have some linen shirts and stuff when I go out, but you guys know I never go anywhere. So anyway, but I still like buttons. I still like them. But I don't find many buttons as part of my life. Everything these days is zippers. Okay, so of course we can take these and we can do the backing that we did before. And you could take something like this and drill 4 holes and you would just stitch it on. Now I would say that this is a little thin for that kind of application. Also for the size. A button this size is most likely going to go on a coat or some kind of heavier garment. So you're not going to want something as thin as a potato chip. You're probably going to want something that has a little more body and a little more bulk to it for something like that. So it just should be consistent with what you're sewing it and stitching it to. Now, another way of dealing with a button is to put a shank on. Now, you could actually make the shank out of polymer clay, but you could just as easily take wire and make a loop like that and then cover it and just embed that wire in the back of something like this. And then, of course, when you stitch it, you just keep going through that loop. You can make the loop very small as well. Okay, and that I think is probably the better way of dealing with it, because if you start putting clay shanks on the back of these pieces, well, you want to make them kind of small and fine so that they aren't really heavy and big. Of course, in a bigger button, you could make a larger shank, but also you don't want them to crack off or fall off or get knocked off the back. Okay, so my choice, I think, is probably going to be to take a stainless steel wire. This is the much hated finding, and turn it into a loop. Okay, so let me get my All right, where are my, hello? Where are my wire cutters? I have so many wire cutters. Well, I'll find them later. Because essentially all I'm going to do is, let's just start in the beginning and just turn like this. And of course I could go closer to the end. Just make a tight loop, like so. Don't want it very big. And let's just take and insert this and pull it back like so. That might even be a bit big. Maybe that is better, something along those lines. Let me straighten this out a bit. And let's bend it closer to the loop itself. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to stick way out. As a matter of fact, it's probably better if it doesn't. Now, straighten it out like something like that. And then I would cut the arms about there, and then that will go on the back of the button, and that becomes the shank. All right, I'll be back. I'm going to find one of my 100 wire cutters. So I exaggerated. I don't have 100. I have 10. Come on. Over here cutting so that maybe. All right. So I made this very long because you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a loop here. That's going to help me, I think. So I'm just going to make a loop, and this loop will be under the clay. So I think it will be less likely to pull out. Like that. See? Yes, like that. Now you want this to conform to the back of whatever you're putting it on, more or less, like something like that. Ideally, it would be flat. So maybe I'll pull the arm down a bit. Will help to have 2 pliers. That is a bit better. Might not be perfect. I'm not really expecting perfection at this point. I am not a wire worker. You guys know that. I do my best, but we're not talking about any kind of fine wire worker here. I get by. I get by. Okay, so that's kind of the way this is going to go, and I think that that will be secure enough. Now this button is rather large. This is the big one. So I'm going to make this backing a bit thicker. Last time I think I did 5. Well, 5 seems a little bit thin. So if I make this whatever this is, let's roll this through. Let me start with 3. 3 may be just the thing I need. Yeah, I think 3 is good. It's going to give the button some bulk and some weight without making it too heavy. So I am going to texture it as I usually do by taking my Dualplex sponge, rolling it through the pasta machine together through 3. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Now, I can't really glue this down. I mean, I could try, but you know, there just isn't much to glue. There's not much surface contact between that wire and the back of that button. So what I will do instead is start by backing the whole piece. Now this time I didn't put anything in the middle. I can later, however. We're just dealing with the back right now. Actually, if I were going to do that, I would have done it before. But you saw that part of the process, so I don't really think I need to do that again. Okay, let's pull this up over the front as we did before and trim it away. We're trimming. Yes, I forgot about buttons. And then I made these earrings and they reminded me of buttons. Some people love buttons. Bead and button, you know. And people love buttons. I have to admit, I've never been that much into buttons. All right, so I'm just trying to sink this right down into the clay. Okay. And you might want to take a tool like some kind of needle tool and see if you can push it down a little further. I'm going to have to cover it up anyway, so let's just see how far we can get it down in there before we have to cover it up. Now, I'm not going to cover it with something as thick as this. This was through setting 3. Now let's go to setting 5. I'm going to do the same texture with the sponge. This time I will cut another circle. It's going to be big enough to cover the wire, like so. And it's going to have a slit to accommodate the loop. So I've got a slit right there. So let's just take and pop that right over. Now, okay. Now I'm just using the sponge to really push that clay down around the wire, like so, and that will keep that wire from breaking and coming out. I still have a shank that it's a little smaller now, so before you bake it, just push it down, push the clay down like so. Now that's plenty of loop. That shank is plenty big enough for sewing and stitching. Maybe it could be just a tad larger, depends on what kind of needle and what kind of thread, but a very fine thread would be fine. So I guess that's one thing when you're making your metal piece, you have to consider what kind of thread, what kind of needle will you be sending through that shank, that little metal shank. Okay, so I think that's good. I've made a button. Now all I have to do is cure this. A little bit of an issue right here. So if you're going to put your signature on anything, then maybe that's the perfect place for it. Where are my signature canes? I have to find my signature canes. Dang. This happens whenever I clean my studio. Okay, well someday I'll find my signature canes. Okay, so this is going to go in the oven. Last thing. Want to make sure that you've got no gapping there. And this time I'm going to cure it this way on the back side of my dim sum cooking thing. Okay, I'll be back. Well, here we are at the end of class. Started out wanting to make simple silk screened earrings. These are cute, I like them. Then it turned into, let's take the scraps and make a bead. turned into a lariat. And then finally, I think these would make great buttons. And look, I have a button. I think I'm going to sew it on one of my tote bags from John. Yeah, I think I'll do that because it's really adorbs. Now that, you guys recognize that, right? That silver ring. It's actually clay with acrylic paint on it. Then I stuck a crystal in the middle. And this, of course, is made the same way as these. There's a pad of clay underneath to lift that disc, the center disc up. This is a really cute button. I like it. I like the button. Okay, so that's it for today's class. It started out as one thing, ended up as totally another thing, which is kind of the way of life around here. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you make earrings, beads, buttons, whatever. I hope you have a good time. So I'm Donna Kato, and I am signing off. Bye.